#bully mocked a single dad in a cafe, until he moved like a Delta Force legend. The cafe fell silent as Marcus Wright's coffee cup shattered against the floor. His 5-year-old daughter Emma clutched her teddy bear tighter, tears streaming down her face as the tall, imposing man continued his tirade. No one moved to help, except one man in the corner, his weathered hands steady as he set down his newspaper. What happened next would change everyone's perspective on respect, courage, and the unexpected heroes walking among us. If this story of standing up for what's right resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of everyday heroes. Marcus had been having the morning from hell. Emma's fever had broken overnight, but she was still weak and cranky. The babysitter had cancelled last minute, his boss was breathing down his neck about a deadline, and the mortgage payment was overdue. Being a single dad since his wife's death 3 years ago had never felt more overwhelming than it did today. "Just need to grab some coffee and medicine, then we'll head home, sweetie," Marcus whispered to Emma, who nodded weakly against his shoulder. The local cafe was crowded, but he managed to find a small table. Emma's favorite teddy bear, the last gift from her mother, sat propped against the sugar container. The trouble started when Marcus accidentally bumped into Derek Hansen, a local businessman known for his short temper and inflated sense of importance. Coffee splashed onto Derek's expensive suit jacket, and his reaction was immediate and explosive. "Watch where you're going, you incompetent moron," Derek shouted, drawing attention from everyone in the cafe. "Can't even control your movements? No wonder you can't control your kid." Marcus apologized profusely, offering to pay for dry cleaning, but Derek continued his verbal assault, growing louder with each passing second. Emma began to cry, overwhelmed by the confrontation. "Daddy, I want to go home," she whimpered. Marcus reached for her teddy bear, but in his haste, he knocked over his coffee cup, which crashed to the floor. The cafe fell silent as Derek's face reddened further. "Typical. Single parents like you shouldn't be allowed in public. Can't even take care of yourself, let alone a kid," Derek sneered, reaching for Emma's teddy bear. "Is this what distracts you from watching where you're going?" That's when a calm voice cut through the tension. "I believe that belongs to the little girl." In the corner sat Thomas Reed, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen more than most. He'd been quietly reading his newspaper and sipping his coffee until now. Derek scoffed. "Mind your own business, old man." Thomas folded his newspaper with deliberate precision and stood up. There was something in his movement, an economy of motion, a fluid grace that seemed at odds with his age. He covered the distance between his table and Marcus's in what seemed like milliseconds, his footsteps making no sound on the cafe floor. Before anyone realized what happened, Thomas was standing between Marcus and Derek. The teddy bear was somehow back in Emma's arms, and Thomas's hand rested lightly on Derek's wrist, not gripping, just touching, but Derek's face contorted in discomfort. "I think you owe this gentleman and his daughter an apology," Thomas said, his voice still remarkably calm and quiet. "Everyone has bad days. Everyone makes mistakes. But how we treat others during those moments defines our character." Derek tried to pull away, but found he couldn't move without causing himself considerable pain. The cafe remained silent, watching the scene unfold. "Do you know what I learned during my 20 years in Delta Force?" Thomas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I learned that true strength isn't about intimidation or making others feel small. It's about protection. It's about standing up for those who need it." Thomas released Derek's wrist and stepped back. "Now, I think we can all agree that a spilled coffee isn't worth ruining a little girl's day, or anyone else's for that matter." Derek rubbed his wrist, his face a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and a new emotion, respect tinged with fear. He glanced around at the silent cafe, at Thomas's unwavering gaze, at Marcus holding his daughter protectively. I apologize," Derek finally muttered. "Bad day at work. Shouldn't have taken it out on you." Thomas nodded once, then turned to Emma. Your teddy bear is very special, isn't he? Emma nodded shyly. Mommy gave him to me before she went to heaven. The cafe collectively held its breath at her innocent words. Even Derek had the decency to look ashamed. Thomas smiled gently. Well, he's very brave, just like you. And just like your dad. What followed was unexpected. Thomas invited both Marcus and Derek to sit at his table. Initially reluctant, both men eventually agreed. Over fresh coffee, provided free by the now attentive cafe staff, Thomas shared stories from his life, not of combat or violence, but of camaraderie, of fathers in his unit who missed their children, of strangers helping each other in foreign lands. Marcus opened up about his struggles as a single father, about keeping his wife's memory alive for Emma while trying to build a new life. And Derek, to everyone's surprise, revealed his own troubled childhood with an abusive father who had used public humiliation as a weapon. I became what I hated most, Derek admitted quietly. I never realized it until today. By the time they parted ways, phone numbers had been exchanged. Derek offered Marcus a job at his company with better hours and pay. Marcus accepted, but only if he could earn it on merit. Thomas slipped away quietly during this exchange, leaving behind a business card with a simple note: sometimes the battles at home require more courage than those on the battlefield. You're doing well, soldier. The card belonged to a support group for single parents, one that, as Marcus would later discover, Thomas had founded after retiring from military service. The group provided childcare, job placement, and emotional support to single parents struggling to make ends meet. 6 months later, the same cafe hosted a fundraising event for Thomas's foundation. Derek, now a major donor, stood beside Marcus, who had become the program's newest counselor. Emma, her teddy bear still faithfully by her side, played with other children whose parents had found hope through Thomas's organization. Thomas watched from the sidelines, declining recognition or praise. His Delta Force training had taught him to complete the mission without seeking glory. And this mission, helping broken families find strength, was the most important deployment of his life. So when you see someone struggling in public, a harried parent, an overwhelmed caregiver, someone at the end of their rope, remember that kindness can be as powerful as any special forces technique. The most important battles are fought not on distant shores, but in cafes, playgrounds, and homes, where everyday heroes make the choice to protect rather than harm, to lift up rather than tear down. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a knife, but simple human decency, delivered with the precision and effectiveness of a Delta Force legend. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about everyday heroes making a difference in our world. Remember, the greatest acts of courage often happen when no one is watching, except those whose lives are forever changed.